Hey guys, it's Samplifire. My Firestorm EP just came out on Disciple, and today I want to show you about the title track called Firestorm. So first thing I'll do is I'll just play it from the build-up for you guys. 3, 2, 1. Alright, so I won't play the full drop, but you know the track already by now if it's already out on Disciple. But what I want to show you today is mainly the idea of it and how I created the full track out of this simple idea, and specifically the sound I used to start the whole track. The principle of that track is that I use an old sound from this VST called, I mean it's not a VST, but from this DAW called Reason, and they have a VST called Maelstrom. I don't have the exact patch here on the project at the moment, but I can show you the sound one by one so you can see how they came about and you know how I layered them together. The one sound I'm talking about is really easily heard in this bass here. Let me show you. Boom, this one here. Right, so it's like the old 2010, 2012 like monsters and rhythm sound, I guess you could say. But the way I made it unique, I think, is by using the rack, the effects chain from my older track called Crypt Killer that came out on Disciple last year. So I combined this, you know, very standard rhythm sound, I guess, with my own processing, creating this super heavy, like stompy sound, like very full and rich sound that just, you know, goes crazy in the club or festival or whatever. And the first time I played it at Lost Lands with Infect was like incredible. So since then I've just been playing it every time. It's not a complex track per se, but it's just a good experiment with an old sound. So before I explain more in detail every sound, I'll show you the different sounds. So that's where I start with, like the sustain sound. Everything is made from the same VST. I'll show that later. Then we have this one here. After that we have this layer here, and then we reply, like it's a call and response between these couple of sounds, and then the very, very heavy quarter note simple sound later on. Right, and it's just repeating that process every time. Call and answer, question and response, whatever you say. It's always like that. So the next section has this sound that starts it. Oh shit, this one. And then we reply with a different sound, I believe. Yeah, this one. It's just a copy of the previous one, just a different, probably a different effects chain, slightly different preset, but realistically it's just the same sound per se. Like it's just very, very close. And I think it's important, by the way, to keep a certain structure. Don't change too much. You have one structure that works over, like say 8 bars, copy that structure, paste and slightly change it, just enough to keep it interesting, but not too much, so you can engage. You know, you can create a structure in the head of the listener as well, so they can follow you. And then for the next section, so the next 16 bars, I have a bit more changes. So as you can see, I kept the main quarter note bass above this one, but this time I introduce a new layer, kind of singing for you, like da 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 da. And again, that helps keeping the structure, but bringing a new element every 8 bar or every 16 bars in that case. And finally, on the last section, which by the way, I'm still not super happy with this section, even though it works, right? But the last section has a different main bass, which is this one. It's a serum bass this time. It's using the same MIDI channels, the same pitch automation, so it still has that sort of consistency with the previous sections, but it's a different way I created the bass. Right, so basically that's it. Chord enhancers, every 8 bars we add a new element or we change the main elements, and then we have a layer happening from the 16th bar and later on. Just to show you, I guess if you want to do that, guys, at home using that sound, you have to use what's called Reason Rack plugin. So I'll just do it quick here. I won't have time to do the full sound obviously, but I can start creating like a rough shape of the sound, I guess. So Reason Rack is looking like this, and then you can add a device. Actually, you can click here, reset, then you go to the bottom. I think it's called square 4. You must have heard about that if you're a producer. And then the way I started is that I will just grab the MIDI channel I have here, right? Because it has all the information I need basically. What I mean by that is not only obviously the notes, but the MIDI pitch bends here. So this is super important for what I'm going to do today. So right, you have that movement here. It's very quiet. Let me turn up the volume a little bit. And then the idea is to keep that movement, but make it interesting, heavy, whatever you want to do. But the way I want it to do is heavier, obviously. So I start having a bit of motion here. Right, a bit of motion on the volume as well. You can use the attack if you want to. Right, you have that sort of simple sound. Let me add another super important device from Reason. It's called Scream 4. I can have the volume like that. Right, so it sounds very simple, very quiet, right? But that's how you want it. You want it to be simple, mono, dry, like you just want the texture to be nice. Yeah, that's perfect. And then we can start bringing crazy effects, and that's where I think you can modernize that sound or make it your own. The way I do it is by compressing like super, like way too much, distorting way too much, to the point where like we keep the texture, but we have a completely full sound, really. All right, let me add more effects. Right, you get the idea. That's how you start. That's how you start the sound. And then by adding and adding and adding different sort of effects, by tweaking the sound a little bit more, for couple maybe 1-2 hours, I was able to reach that sound. The track originally was made using Sandstorm as the intro, and I guess that's how most people heard about it. But I wanted to recreate the full original track out of it by keeping the drop and sort of like recreating an intro around it. So the intro is definitely inspired by it. I can show you like how it sounds. So nothing specifically unique about it. I just wanted to blend my sound, the dubstep sound I have, with Sandstorm a little bit in the background here, and build it up quite. Now, once you have the different sounds, usually you still need a couple steps to reach the final, the final texture, the final sound of your track. Yeah, in my case, I have a couple of effects here happening. I have this sort of parallel reverb that I do quite often. It's a good way to create a room feeling in your track, but without sounding too reverby, like too much of reverb really. So you keep your dry sound with nothing obviously, and then you have the wet here in parallel mode, quieter, and I use hybrid reverb for that because it just creates this super low-key layer look. And that's on my whole drop really, on my main stomp group here it's called. And then on the bass group, I have a little bit of things. I usually have more, but like I think it was enough for what I had. Just an EQ here, probably, missing some mid-range when I was referencing. Camel Crusher at the end of my chain. A little, like 1 or 2% of distortion engaged here. And then Imager to increase the stereo field, to increase the side volume basically. And then going to my master here, I have a very cool trick I can show you. It's using Ambassador on the master. So what it creates essentially is a double of your sub. I'll show you what it is. Yeah, what you're hearing, you need headphones for that, but if you have headphones, you probably hear a sub. And that's what I'm adding to my sound. Because my sound is usually very distorted, so it's losing a lot of low end when I distort and compress, etc. I need it to get the texture, but then I'm missing a lot of sub. So for anyone that's doing that, a good trick is to use Ambassador on the master to add a proper clean sub on top of it, and you can use these settings if you want. After that, I have another Imager, whatever, it's not doing much. And I have Pro L2, and I use aggressive mode. I don't use clipping anymore because I find it to be slightly cleaner with Pro L2, even though it might be a bit less aggressive, but it's good enough for me. And usually after my limiter, I have span, and that's the best trick I'll show you today. I think that's the most useful things I might be able to show you. So the way I use it is I play my drop, and then I look at my mid-range up to the top, and I try to balance my mix so that my mid-range is hitting at the same volume as my low end. Let me play it for you. Like we definitely have a little bit more mid and top around the 3K, 6K to 8K area than the sub, but like it's very close, and a lot of mixes sometimes miss that balance. It's like either too much high end, too much low end. The mid range are usually fine. It's just balancing the mid and the top. The top and the bottom is very, very important. So yeah, remember that trick. So yeah, that the master and the bass group is simple but very important. That's what makes my track most of the time done quickly, I guess. Okay, so intro inspired by Sandstorm, build up, drop. Then the last thing I didn't really talk enough about, I think, is the pitch bend. So remember I made that bass earlier, like the sketch of the bass. If you go on my pitch bend here, you can see that it's actually chaotic. It's going up and down and up and down and up and down. Now I'll play it for you one more time. Oh, my bad. Let me do a better bass, so it's not the best. Okay, I'm gonna, bring that bass here for you guys. Add the drums from the drop. Give me a sec. sidechain as well would be nice to have. Right. So we're looking at 449. With that. Activate the bass. Okay, I'm gonna do 8th note here. So the way you do it is like that. Not one shot sync. You find this one. 1/8. Yeah, that's sick. Right, so going back to my to what I said before. Now let's do the same, but you know, without the pitch bend. It might sound silly, but look. Now back with it. So you know, you're giving sort of a new energy, like crazier energy to your track. I can go crazier like that. Yeah, you know, so it's also giving like sort of a unique phrase or movement and making sense of your track, in my opinion. Yeah, there we go. I mean, that's it. Look, now we can automate the speed here, for example. I'll do that right now, like dun, 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 like that. So let's bring that up. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. It's like that, I feel. Yeah. Yeah, and then at the end maybe. And the idea is to not change it too much, not add too much layer, not, you know, restrict yourself to just a couple sounds, but make the sound so intense that they sort of are enough to drive the track. That's hard because you gotta use more effects, maybe spend more time on one bass rather than adding different basses together. And using just one bass, you know, having, you know, using the rhythm principles in a sense, or following the rhythm guidelines or whatever you call it, doesn't mean that it has to be linear and predictable and sort of, some even though I disagree, some say boring. Use every tool you have, like different effects, reverbs, pitch bend, slight movement inside the bass, slight layering, in order to keep that interesting. So for example, let's say I can bring another layer underneath. Let's use whatever we have already, right? So let's go to the plugs here. Maybe we have something. Yes, this one, it was good, I think. I didn't have time to show everything, but yeah, this one is good. Right, so that would sound like that. Yeah, hell yeah, that's sick actually. Let's move that in the stomp group I talked about. You will see how that helps. After a few minutes of tweaking the sounds, this is what I have. So quickly, what I added on top of that was disperser. You know about that probably if you make dubstep. The way it works, because I don't see a lot of people explain how it works. It's called phase dispersion, but the effects I found that it creates is delaying the low end after the top end. So you basically delay your sub, and it creates this nice groove and flow between the mid range and the sub. When the sub is a little bit delayed, you have time to distort the sub on its own and distort the top end on its own, and it creates that extra groove, I guess. Without it, you see, so the sub has more time to breathe. And then after that, I have an EQ just boosting the top end and a fat compression on the low end, making sure that my sub is always loud, always strong, no matter what I do in my synths. And yeah, I added just 4% of reverb, slight EQ, but whatever. Okay, so yeah, this is it. It's not exactly what I have, but what I have in Firestorm, but I would say this is pretty close, and I just showed you how you can make a sound like that, pretty much. Pitch bend, same note, one bass, a bit of movement on the bass, insane amount of compression and distortion, basically until you can't get more. One layer here, adding a nice touch to it. And yeah, for example, what you could do after that is copy everything, including the drums, the sidechain, etc. And just change one setting, just one. Thank you for watching, guys. Let me know if you want to see more tutorials in the future. Make sure to stream my EP on Disciple right now, called Firestorm EP. And yeah, see you next time.